Hi, it's Rich Tehrani here. We're at CTIA 2010 in Las Vegas. Thanks for watching. We're going to be speaking with Cathal McGloin, who's the CEO of FeedHenry. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well, Rich.
Thank you for being on the program.
Love to be here.
We go back 10 years or something?
That's right.
8 years, 6
That's
years?
right. Yes.
Number of years.
Good experiences with TMC, absolutely.
Yeah, great. Likewise. And tell us a little bit about your company.
So FeedHenry is a new company that addresses one of the big problems in the mobile apps world today, which is the fact that developers have to build an app for every different platform out there. So they have to build an iPhone app, they have to build an Android app, they have to build an app for BlackBerry. And so we solve that problem for developers today, and we allow the enterprises to get back in the game of developing enterprise class apps.
And so the benefit to them is not having to deal with code bases for all the different types of devices that are on the market. Is that
correct? There's two main benefits. First of all, as you say, it allows them to develop apps, but it develop them in internet technology, skills that are widely available. So they can use HTML and JavaScript and CSS. They don't need to go and find people with Objective-C skills or C#. So they're a much broader audience of people who could be developing apps. So that's the first thing that we solve. And the second thing is we allow them to do it in an environment that makes use of things like telecom APIs or payment processing or location, and we enable all these to happen.
So are there any of the features that are more challenging to give access to developers, things like the camera, video, things like that?
No, because I think there's a general move in the community towards standards, and you've got initiatives like the wholesale application community announcing standards in Barcelona a couple of weeks ago that want to standardize these APIs that will allow developers to call cameras and make use of accelerometers and enable address book and integration to Facebook. So these are all being moved to a standard. And so we just bet on, a few years ago, on standards that everybody would move to building apps in a standard way, and that's actually what's happening.
So in terms of reaching out to the developers, how do you get them to work with your systems? How do you let them know that they should work with you?
Well, one of the exciting things I think about our platform is it's ideal for operators. So one of our target audiences is operators. Operators have been a little bit behind the curve on this whole apps thing.
Sure.
So you had iPhone initially, and then BlackBerry and the other device manufacturers started catching up. But the operators were left out in the cold and been potentially relegated to a dumb pipe. We now offer operators a way to get back in the game. We allow them to create an environment for their developers, and they can attract in developers by saying, hey, come to us, you only need to develop it once in our environment, and we'll make it run on all smartphones.
Interesting.
So the operators will be the ones who bring in the developers, because they want to bring content and interesting things, and that's what will drive operator services and drive their revenues and handsets.
So how's the competitive space?
We're seeing some small companies beginning to emerge that have products that will do something similar on the cross-platform side, but there's nobody with the vision of solving the cross-platform and having a cloud back-end that will allow them to link it into enterprise applications and enterprise IT. And that's one of the big differentiators, is that we now can go to enterprises, that the Fortune 500, and say, hey, Mr. CIO, we've got a platform that your IT people can build apps so that you can reach your customers and partners better, and they can do it in a secure environment that links into back-end systems, and doesn't mean that you're trusting a developer in a garage somewhere in Ohio to build it in Objective-C that you may never see again.
Sure.
So you've got all this, the concept of IT lifecycle management, carrier-grade quality. These are the things that will allow enterprises to build apps for the communities.
So one of the companies I know in the space is RoMobile, and they're similar. I haven't used their platform, but it's a similar idea. But where you guys seem to have a different play that makes a lot of sense to me is going to the carrier, because, like you said, the carriers are really concerned about being just a dumb pipe vendor. Correct. Especially in an age where they may be forced to sell their services for a fixed rate, but continue to see exponential usage. So they're going to get squeezed and look for other ways to generate revenue, and taking control of an app store is one way of doing that. Now, so the question I have is, do you have the potential, and I guess the answer is probably yes, if I write an application for, let's say Verizon, we'll just use a hypothetical, Verizon was to adopt your product on their network, and a developer was to write for Verizon, that app theoretically would just need to get recompiled if it was to run on another carrier network, let's say Orange or something like that in Europe.
That's correct.
So just maybe a recompilation?
It's not even a recompilation. So when the developer builds their app, first of all, they'll own the IP and the code, so it belongs to them. They're just doing it in our environment, which is a framework that they can build. And by clicking an icon, they can create an iPhone version, an Android version, and all the other versions. But they own that code, and they can take that code with them to another operator and just put a different look and feel or colors, and that same app will run in somebody else's environment as well through our platform.
Now, are there any challenges in terms of Flash or anything like that? Does that come into play at all for you?
Not really. And there's a whole battle going on at the moment about Flash versus HTML5.
Sure.
Because we're standards and HTML is a standard, HTML5 will take care of all of that for us. So our developers can program in HTML5 and use all of the functionality that previously was only available through Flash.
Okay, and so I know you answered this, but I just want to get back to it. Are there any things that aren't exposed? Are there any drawbacks to using a single type of interface to program on multiple phones? In other words, is there anything missing that a developer may say, oh my God, the GPS is not as accurate, or the Flash or something?
It's not that is there anything missing. I think it's about the application, and where we see ourselves as being more for business and telecoms apps rather than hardcore gaming apps. So if you really want to build a high-end game, you're probably going to use the original development environment for that phone because it has to be optimized for that phone. But when it comes to the business apps, they're not trying to solve device issues. They're trying to solve business problems, and so they're less interested in how accurate is that accelerometer when I shake it, and more interested in can it tie into my insurance engine or my banking engine. And so that's really the market that we're after.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks, Rich.
And good luck.
Show. Thanks a lot.